Ni hao everybody and welcome to another vlog. Today I'm not going to travel anywhere and show you the city, rather I will tell you about some of my experiences in Shanghai and the things that I found remarkable or interesting or yeah, just a couple of things that I had not expected. So I've only been in Shanghai for about 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm not going to pretend to be the expert here. This morning I went to the school for the grand opening, so that was on a Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. And tomorrow everything really starts. I'll have to clock in with my fingerprint, very official, so they want to make sure all the teachers are at school at least 8 hours every day, so I'm not used to that. And so tomorrow, yeah, things will really kick off, except I still will not have class because my kids are at military camp. So, anyway, I'm not going to talk about school. I'm going to talk about a few things that surprised me about living in Shanghai or Shanghai life so far. And I will also show you my cats, but you have to wait till the end of the video for that. Alright, so 5 things. And the first thing is an obvious one. It is a language barrier. Now, obviously, I knew that there was a language barrier, and I mean, I read and watched enough about Shanghai to know that the main language would be Mandarin and that people also speak Shanghainese. But what I mean by this is that I've never really been in a situation before where, you know, English is not very helpful. So, to me this is remarkable, and I don't mean in an oh my goodness, people should learn more English type of way. I just mean that I've never really been in a situation before where English is not the language that you use as a lingua franca, as we do in Europe, right? When we go to France, or when we go to Italy, or when we go to German, you don't use the German that you learned in school ages ago, you use English, right? And English is really the language that you use anywhere in Europe, and is, you know, the second language of most people, so everybody, you know, everybody uses that instead. Now in China, of course, the lingua franca is Mandarin Chinese. For many people here, Mandarin is actually the second language, and they have to learn it at school the same way we Europeans have to learn English in school. So most people here, also in Shanghai, because there are so many people who come from the countryside and move here for work, so many people speak Mandarin as a second language, and so they're already, you know, they're already speaking their type of English. So us Westerners, we just have to learn that language, Mandarin, to get by here. Of course, there are people who say that you don't need to learn Mandarin to go to Shanghai, and if you're going here on a holiday, little trip, then I guess you don't really need to learn Chinese. And if you stay in the touristy areas, maybe you don't need to learn Mandarin Chinese. But if you're going to be here for a year or longer, I really strongly advise you to learn Chinese, because it is not comfortable being somewhere and always being that expat. I mean, everybody knows you're an expat because you're white or whatever, you're not Chinese looking, so they're already staring at you, and then when you're pointing at stuff, it just makes you feel so awkward. I mean, it makes me feel really awkward when I'm at a shop and all of the staff rushes over to see if they can help understand what I want. It just puts you in that position where you are clearly the immigrant. And I'm always going to be clearly the immigrant because of the way I look. That is one of my other points, actually. But, you know, I don't think that as an immigrant you can just... I don't think your life is going to be very comfortable if you're always that one that has to be pointing at stuff, or if you always needed somebody to translate for you, or to be at your side, to help interpret, to go to the bank with you. It's just not very practical. And frankly, when people move to Europe, you know, they are expected to learn the local language. When people move to the US, of course, the general idea is that they learn English. So I don't really understand the type of person who comes to China and doesn't even want to learn Chinese. I don't understand that. And furthermore, you really do need it. I feel like it's also nice to show people that you're making an effort to learn their language, because I'm talking here as if I am really good at speaking Chinese, and I'm absolutely not. But I'm learning, and I want to learn, and I want to adapt, and I think that is really important. So if you move to a different country and you don't want to learn the language, then I don't know. What's wrong with you? Moving on, moving on, moving on. So the next thing, there are actually a couple of things. They're money related. So item number 2 is that people here don't really use cash. They use fancy telephone apps. They use WeChat Pay. They use Alipay. Now I don't have these things yet because of my work permit. It's taking a long time. I don't have a bank account yet or a phone number, so I have to pay cash. But people are really generally annoyed when you know, I'm trying to figure out my coins because I want to get rid of those coins. People, yeah, I mean, the people behind you in line, they're annoyed. Everybody is annoyed because it is really easy and convenient, of course, to just use your phone. And in fact, most people don't even take their wallet when they go out because the taxi driver uses WeChat Pay. So I'm feeling really old-fashioned here with my wallet and my red bills, my red money. Okay, item number 3 is that everything is available to people all the time, and I don't know why, but it's just, you know, maybe it's the first time for me that I live in such a big city that maybe all big cities work like that, but it just astonishes me. You could go to a mall and they have everything, and it is basically, it's a trap because so many of the expats I have met, they order stuff online and they order so many things that they don't need because it's all so easy and so available. So it is wonderful that they have everything, but it's also a trap. So I might get sucked into that sooner than later. So item number 4 is also money related because Shanghai is not a cheap city. Now, people obviously, for good reason, believe that China is cheap because I'm sure that China is cheap. But Shanghai, when it comes to money, is not China. People pay their butts off. People pay a lot of money for their rent. People who work in the bubble tea shops, they only make 4,000 RMB a month, so they have to share apartments and they have to live far away from the bubble tea place, or else they can't afford to even work here. So it's kind of like San Francisco and London, except maybe even worse, because the city center is, you know, unaffordable. You have to be super rich. Me as a teacher, I pay quite a bit of money and I'm not in the center. I am at least half an hour taxi drive away from the center, probably more. I live in an area where, you know, the university is, but it's not city center, and I only live on the 4th floor, and you know, generally the higher up you live, the more you pay, so that's why I can afford this place, but it is expensive. The rent, yeah, people complain about it, expats and locals, everyone complains about the price of the rent here, and that is the worst because everything else can be as cheap or expensive as you want. The same as back home, right? If you eat out every night, it's gonna be expensive. If you cook for yourself, it's gonna be less expensive. If you want fancy clothing, that's gonna be expensive. If you never have a haircut, then you save money, right? So that can be quite cheap. Like food on the streets is quite cheap, but also you never really know what type of meat they put in the food. So you win some, you lose some. Number 5 on my list, the last item, is actually one that is the weirdest to me and the most difficult to talk about because it is, it is being white. And I've never really thought about myself as a white person. Now I know that I am a white person and that I am privileged in many ways and I come from a wealthy country and I know all of those things very well, but I've never actually felt white. Why is that? Because I'm from Europe, right? I'm from the Netherlands, where we do have lots of, and I don't like to say race because we are all the human race. I like to say ethnicities. In the Netherlands, depending on where you go, there are quite a few ethnicities there. The thing is, I'm never the minority there, so I never really think about it. I mean, I personally accept everybody for who they are, and whatever skin color they are, right? I see people as people, or at least I really really try to, and I try to not be like, oh, look at those Asians and look at those Africans. Definitely not. But I've never really been the minority until now, so now I know what that feels like too, right? So imagine my neighborhood is not an expat neighborhood. I'm not near the center, and most of my colleagues who work at the school are actually Americans, but they do not live here. I am the only one who lives close to the school on a walking distance. The others take the subway. So in my neighborhood area, if I go shopping, I usually don't see any other white people. So people notice me, and it's just really weird because sometimes they stare at you, and I've never had that happen before. So in the supermarket, they just look at you, try to see what you are buying, look inside your cart, and they're just really interested. This happened to me in the elevator where a mom pushed her child towards me, and the child was forced to say hello because I guess he has English lessons. Shanghai is a very international city, but not every neighborhood is international. And well, you saw that last time I did the video, and I was on the ferry, right? I was at the Bund on the ferry, and you could see that most other tourists were Chinese tourists, right? Lots of people from China come here to be a tourist, much like Dutch people go to Amsterdam, except on a much larger scale. So, you know, not everybody here in China is happy to see foreigners, much like it is back home. Like, there are always going to be locals who don't like foreigners by default. So I just try to like be extra nice and show them that, you know, some foreigners are trying to learn Chinese, some foreigners are friendly and hold the door open for you and say 谢谢, 没事, 你好, 你好, 再见. It matters. So anyway, yeah, I feel very white, and there is nothing I can do to hide my skin color, so I just have to make the best of it and show them that I am one of the nice, not very dangerous foreigners, not out there to, you know, marry a Chinese lady. Or am I? So it is even, you know, it's even less common to see somebody with dark skin or black skin here. So some of the locals really react strangely, or they're so curious, but they don't really think about your boundaries, so they just start taking photos, and that's a bit strange. It happened to me, but I guess it happens more when you're black. If you have anything to ask me about this, please let me know in the comments below. And of course, I promised you a little shot of my little cat. I have two cats. I got them yesterday. They're really, really cute and super sleepy. Oh, lazy kitty. Oh, this one is called Mao. Her actual name was Mimi. She was a teen mom because she's already had babies, but she's only 11 months old. Yeah, pack 'em. Oh, pack 'em. Whoa. Oh, poor little guy with the cone.
Yeah, but access will be ready for us here. We have to take them by surprise, go where we're the most powerful, where we're the most connected. Now the words of the witches, the secrets we hid in the night, the oldest of gods are removed. The great work of magic is sought.
Oh, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. 再见。